All right, so jumping into our paint program here so that we can start doing some high-end illustrations so that you guys can understand what we're talking about today. We're gonna go into variables. So what are variables? Variables are simply containers for you to put things into. In other words, when you create a variable, you're just creating a box to store information inside of, right? That's it. And then you use that and you can put stuff into it, you can take stuff out. That's all a variable is. But why do you need to do this in the first place? What's the use for it? There's a bunch of questions that you can probably have about this. How do you even go about doing it? Let's start talking. Going back into our script here, let's actually make our first variable. First, we're going to create a space up here at the top so that we know where we're going to be creating variables at. And as your first challenge during this video, go ahead and make a comment up here that tells you that this is where we're going to be making variables. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, so remember 2 forward slashes. And then you can go ahead and say variables go here. Or something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly that. Just put yourself a note there so that you know that variables go there. And then we're going to make our first variable. So keep in mind Mr. Translator, the guy I introduced you to in the last video. So if I just type in some random things here like that, he goes from the point where the first letter starts and he goes until the point where either a symbol or a space happens, and he takes everything in between. So everything that I just highlighted right there. And he attempts to look that up. Now, if this is something that is meaningful to him, like void right there, public right there, class right there, then he will do something with that. So if we start typing in something here, we write in string like so. And keep in mind, this is not string with a capital letter or anything. And you see Visual Studio actually automatically lowercase that for us. You put in string like so, that tells him that you're going to do something. Mr. Translator takes that in and he goes, okay, I might do something with that. And then we push the space button. Mr. Translator then expects for you to do something after that. He reads this up, and once you hit this space right here, he knows, okay, this is string. That's something that exists in C#, and he looks it up. Okay, what do I do when somebody writes string? He goes, okay, I'm supposed to expect something. So if we put a semicolon here, that means that it's ended, right? The thing has like a identity crisis, thinks it's Microsoft Word and that we're spelling something wrong or something. But if we go over it, we find out that's an error. And if you look at it, invalid token in class struct or interface member declaration. That's because Mr. Translator, he expected something to come after string, because when he looked this up, when he looked up the meaning of this, he knew that you're supposed to give him something after that you're supposed to give him a name of any kind. And this name can be any combination of letters and numbers. So I'm just going to write something random, and then I put a semicolon to let him know that it's over. So Mr. Translator expects this to be right here. And then he expects a semicolon when you're ending what you're doing. And just like that, we've created our first variable. In other words, we've created our first box. Now, the reason why we have to create a name for it is because anytime that we type in this name now, enter variable name here, we will actually end up having access to that box, whatever's in that box. Now, it's an empty box right now. We haven't filled it with anything. So let's go down inside the start function. Let's go down below this comment, and then we'll access our box. As soon as we start typing in the name right here, you'll see enter variable name here is there. And it even kind of looks like a box. That's kind of funny. I never realized that before. If you double click on it, it'll finish it for you, or you can hit enter and it'll finish it for you. And so now we have access to this box. If I hit a semicolon on there though, Mr. Translator expects you to do something with the box. He's not happy that you just have the box just sitting here. So you have to actually do something with that box. So if we hit the equal sign right here, Mr. Translator knows what this means. In fact, we can even put the equal sign right here, and he knows what that means because the space doesn't matter to him. He starts looking up what this enter variable name here is whenever he gets either to a space or when he gets to a symbol. Now, normally we keep a space between the symbols so that it's easier to read. He reads through this, and you see that it automatically highlights it up here. So he goes, okay, I need to look this up. Once he hits the space right here, he goes backwards all the way to the lowercase e, and he goes, okay, I need to look this up. What is this? And he sees it over here. He goes, oh, that's a string. That's a variable. That's a box. What do I need to do with that box? And he expects certain things from you once he gets that box. He goes, okay, I'll grab that box for you. What do you want me to do with this box? And he waits for you to do something with that box. We put this equal sign here, and he goes, oh, you want me to fill up that box with something. So he'll expect you to fill up the box. So when you're filling up a string box, when you're filling up that kind of container, you have to use quotes for the same reason why we have to use quotes down here. In fact, these are strings right here. This and this are strings. And so if we go ahead into these quotes now, we can go ahead and make ourselves a new quote. So my first string, for instance. And then if we save it, we're done, right? No, what's wrong with this? Go ahead and see if you can figure out how to finish this off. What is going on? Why is it giving us an error? So if you simply went over this, you'll see that a semicolon is expected, because keep in mind, Mr. Translator doesn't know that you're done with this until you put a semicolon there at the end, right? And let me show you why that's true. So if we erase all of this, I know you guys are like, oh, come on, we just did that. If we erase all this, what if we put the equal sign right here, and then we write my first string? Like that. Is that going to work? Yes, it does. There's no errors. There's nothing wrong with that. We had the semicolon here at first, and that was still valid. This was still valid. But if we put an equal sign right after that, then it still works as well. So Mr. Translator does expect certain things when you do certain things. So when you do string, he expects a name for that string that you just made. He goes, okay, you're making a new variable of the string type. You're making a string container. You're making a string box. You're making a box that can contain quotes like this, that can contain a string. Okay, what do you want to name it? He expects you to name it at that point. You enter whatever your variable name is here, right? And now I'm going to change this to string A, just for the sake of discussion, right? He goes, okay, you're naming it string A. I'll make a string called A. And then he goes, are you done working on this yet? And you go, no, I want to fill that box. That's what that equal sign means. You go, I want to fill that box up with something. He goes, okay, you want to fill up that box. And then if you write something random in here like this, without the quotes, he goes, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I need a string. So you have to actually put a string into here, which is anything inside of quotes like this. And then you've created your first string. And to prove this, you can go ahead and write string A into here, meaning that this name matches this name right here, and then you can go and run it inside of Unity. So I click the play button and my first string pops up before the second line. Now this brings up the question, why did Mr. Translator, why was he completely okay with us putting it here? Well, that's because in debug.log, when you have anything inside this parentheses, he expects an object of some kind, and a string is an acceptable object. He's okay with taking in a string and printing that out inside of the console. You don't need to completely understand it. I'm just trying to expose you to that information right now. If you didn't digest it, it's okay. Keep coming on with me, guys. It's all right. What I do kind of hope that you understand right now is that we can make a string like this, and we can access the string like this. This means this to the system. When he goes into here, he looks up what this means. He goes, okay, what is this? Because he starts right here. At the end of the symbol, he starts to know, okay, I need to start figuring out what this thing in between this is. And he starts with this S, and he goes all the way to the next symbol, and he gets everything between those two symbols, and he goes, okay, what is that? And then he goes and looks it up, and he finds it over here. This is where he finds the definition of that. He goes, okay, this is what it is. Oh, and we set it equal to something here. We filled that box right here. Then he goes, okay, so I know that you're trying to put what's inside that box right here. I'll put it in right here, because he knows that you're looking for the contents of the box, not the box itself right here. That's pretty fascinating. So I'm going to describe that one more time. Over here, he knows that you're creating a box, right? And if I go like this over here, and I put the equal sign right here, right? And I go my first string again, and so basically I change the meaning, and then I run it in Unity, you'll see my first string again appears. So over here, he knows that you want the contents of the box, but over here he knows that you want the box. That's because he grabs the box and the contents right here. That's what he does. And then when he hits this equal sign right here, he goes, okay, I know what that means. That means that you want the box itself. You don't want the contents of the box. You want me to grab the box. And so he grabs you the box. And then he goes, okay, and then anything that's on this side of the equal sign, I'll fill the box with whatever's on this side of the equal sign. I'll put this in the box. So I can even write a completely different string, and it'll now print that inside of Unity. I'm not even going to show you guys. You're just going to have to believe me. Let's go over here and let's make a new string again. If we write in the keyword string, we tell Mr. Translator, hey, we want to make a new box, and we want that box to be named string B, let's say, right? And we put a semicolon right there. Now, let's say that we go over here and we go string B. So first thing he does is he looks this up. He goes, oh, cool, that's the box that we made earlier. That's the string box that we made earlier. I'll go grab that for you. And, oh, an equal sign? That means that you want to put something in that box. Cool. What do you want me to put in that box? I'm expecting a string, guys, because this is a string. So I'm expecting a quote. You go, okay, I want to fill it with string A. Is that okay? Mr. Translator thinks it's okay. He goes, oh, string A. Okay, I'll go grab that. and he grabs it. And notice here, this is where things get kind of interesting and fascinating. He knows based on which side of the equal sign it is, whether you're talking about the box or the contents. You see, he grabs the box here because it's on the left side of the equal sign. But over here, he grabs the content. He goes, okay, you want the stuff inside of string A. Cool. Let me go grab that box. I'm going to make a copy of what's inside of box A and put it in box B for you. Here you go. And he does that. Now, instead of printing second line as a challenge, why don't you go ahead and print whatever's in string B? Okay, all you have to do that is write string B here. Save it. And now, before you even go and run that, what do you think that's going to print? What's it going to say inside of the console? See, this is a little bit tricky. So let me show you what it's actually going to say. A completely different string. My first string is printed as string B. I'm wondering if some of you thought it was going to say a completely different string twice. Now, here's what happened. You see, code is ran from top to bottom, left to right. This stuff is set up before it even gets to start, right? So it runs start, but in order for it to start to even run, it runs everything in here just to instantiate things and make sure that everything's running. This actually happens a long time before start ever runs. And so it goes up over here and starts at the top. Mr. Translator sees these two forward slashes and then it goes, I'm going to ignore that line. And it goes right down here. And it sees this is the first important character and it goes through here and it looks it up, right? It grabs that box. It goes over here and then it takes the contents of this box, which is right here, and it pours it into this. This hasn't happened yet because we go top to bottom, left to right. This happens before this. So the contents of string A is still my first string at this point when this happens because we haven't done this yet. We haven't changed it over here. Then this runs. Then we print out both things. Now, interestingly enough, if we were to cut this, so Control X or Command X, depending on whether you're on a PC or Mac, and then Control V or Command V to paste it up above, and then we get rid of this line. Now what's going to happen? Well, if we go to Unity, a completely different string prints twice. That's because we changed the meaning of it before we got to the string B equals string A. So what is even the benefit of using a variable in the first place? Because really, if you really think about it, we can just put in the quotes inside of here and write in my first string and a completely different string right here. And then we would have complete control over what string is where. We can obviously tell what strings these are, so there's no confusion about the order of things and things like that we just went through. We don't have to understand Mr. Translator all that well if we just wanted to print out these strings, right? So what's the point? Like, why would we even do this? Well, the point is actually very closely related to what's going to begin making it so that we can make video games in the first place. Because a video game relies on one thing to be different than other mediums, than video and music and storytelling. It requires a different thing, and that's interaction with the player. The thing is, you're not always going to know what that string's value is until the game is played. You're not going to always know what's happening with that variable, what the box is being filled with, because Mr. Translator doesn't care if you fill the box or somebody else fills the box. He'll still have that box and he'll still pull whatever's in that box out. And I know that doesn't make complete sense yet, so I'm going to show you an example. Let's get rid of everything other than one debug log, and we're going to make this happen. So we're going to say player name is right here, right? Then we're going to change the string name to player name over here. And for now, I'm going to set it equivalent to Alvin Rowe, my name. Then we'll do another debug.log and we'll write in player name right here. Now, when we do this, it's going to print out player name is Alvin Rowe, just like that. Now, the thing is, in order for us to put a name that somebody else chooses inside of here, there needs to be some kind of interaction into the system, right? There has to be some place that they can type it out and stuff. In order for us to make that happen, put a box in front of this. So just one of those box brackets like so, which is to the top left of your enter button if you don't know where it is on your keyboard. And you can write serialize field like so, all one word, and you put it into these box brackets, right? Now, if you hover over that, it'll tell you what this thing actually does, and it forces Unity to serialize a private field, which you don't need to fully understand what that means. What it does for us in this case is it makes it so that inside of our first script on the right hand side, which, by the way, if this isn't showing up, you might not have your main camera selected right now, so please select your main camera, look over on the right hand side, you see player name equals Alvin Rowe. And if I change this, so at this point I could be a completely different human than the person that programmed this up. If I change this changes to something like Fang Rui, because I saw that name the other day, then let's hit the play button now, and all of a sudden the player name is Fang Rui. In other words, I was able to change this outside of the actual scripting itself, and we can even make a box inside of the game or anything where they can type in their name. In other words, variables allow for interactions between multiple people outside of the actual scripting process. When we're working within multiple things with a turn-based RPG, like classes and stats, we need to be able to change those things throughout the game. Whereas if we just hard-coded these things in, it wouldn't be as simple. And this player name is now universal throughout this whole script, so if I ever want to change this player name in the future, it's changed throughout the whole script. I can debug.log player name several times on here, and every one of these times it's going to print the same exact name on here. It's going to be Fang Rui every single time right now. Even though I didn't change it again, it's only changed inside this editor, and I don't have to go inside the script. I just change it right here on the right hand side, right inside of our inspector, and it's printing several times. So that universal connection point is kind of one of the ideas behind programming in general. We try to make it so that there's less places for us to mess up. So rather than us having to go through our entire script and change every place that we ever wrote the player name, we use the player name variable so that we can change it in one place and it's changed everywhere. And we also want our code to be readable as well. See, right here, we know that we're printing out the player name because we named the variable player name. So right here, when it's debug.log, somebody that's reading through this code will know, oh, they're actually trying to log out the player name for whatever reason right here. They don't need to know why, but they know what we're trying to do. However, if I'm debug.logging Fang Rui, a person might not necessarily read this and know what's going on until they go to the line above it. They might go, oh, Fang Rui, like, what is that? That could be an item as well as it is a name, right? Like, it could be something else. No offense, Fang. But you get my point here, right? Okay, so I'm going to erase all these other player names down there below. And that's all I really wanted to talk about on strings. In the next video, we're going to be talking about integers, which is a different kind of variable, but you don't really need to understand that at this point right now. When we go into it a little bit more inside the next video, you'll get why we have different kinds of variables. And after that, we can start building this game. Like, I know we're getting long in this introduction here without actually building something that's going to last, but that's going to be kind of a theme of this series, is building, tearing apart, then rebuilding, then tearing apart, then rebuilding, because that's the best way for us to learn on here. Just like when you're building up your muscles, you tear them apart and you build them back up. The best way to learn in this case is to build something small, then tear it apart, and then build something a little bit better, then tear it apart to build something a little bit better until we get done with phase one. After we're done with phase one, we'll talk about how to plan out and build something as a complete project that makes sense, that all connects with one another, that's all synergistic within itself, and it doesn't contradict itself. Like, the thing is, code's always a little bit messy. It's just never perfect, especially when you're making a game. There's too many moving pieces, and you just try your best to plan it out and do your best with it, but at some point you're gonna have a mess on your hands, and you're gonna have to go back through your code and refactor it and rebuild it, just like we've been doing this whole time. So it's best to get you guys used to this process right off the bat. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. I'm really grateful. I hope that you got a lot out of this video, that you learned a lot about strings, and that you're starting to get excited about learning about code. You're like, oh, I understand this stuff. I'm starting to understand Mr. Translator on here. Don't get too caught up on this serialized field part. I'm going to talk about what these things are later on. This is not something that you need to be so worried about right now. This is just something that we were using to display to you that we can interact with this variable once the game is running, or after Mr. Translator's done his job with this, basically. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and my Patreon link is down in the description below if you would like to support the channel. But no matter what, I'm most grateful for the time that you spent with me. Thank you so much. Have a great day.